Lift your face for one breath, right now, before this short message ends. Look toward the hand you cannot see, but have always belonged to. There is a mark on that hand, and the mark is your name. Not the name your worst critic has been using behind your back. Not the name you have been afraid to claim out loud. Not the nickname an old shame has been calling you in private. Your name, engraved deeper than ink, set there longer than memory, and it has not faded across a single one of the years you have spent assuming I had forgotten where you were. Stay near. Take the next few minutes slowly with me. Before we are finished here, I want to show you exactly where you have been written into me, and I want to set one sentence in your hand that I once spoke through a prophet to a people who were sure I had moved on, a sentence that will hush, in this very hour, the suspicion you have been carrying that the one who loves you might have stopped thinking of you. Your name is on my hand. Your face is in my memory. I see you. The fear of having been forgotten is one of the oldest fears in your interior, and you have been carrying it for so long, you have stopped recognizing it as a fear at all. A daughter who learned, somewhere very young, that being remembered required earning it, has been earning ever since. There is a son who has not received a phone call from his own father on the right day in decades, and has begun to assume, without ever quite saying so, that the Father in heaven keeps the same kind of calendar. A widow lights a single lamp on the 8th evening after the loss and wonders if anyone is counting the evenings with her. 3 streets over from her, a young one has been told her whole life that she was an accident, and her hand still flinches when someone reaches for it without warning. An older one has watched his children rebuild their lives in cities that no longer return his calls, and the silence has trained his soul to expect silence from heaven as well. Not one of those quiet rooms is hidden from me. Every unreturned message has been logged. Every evening lamp has been counted. A friend gradually stopped asking how the loneliness was going because the answer no longer seemed to change. The morning prayer has grown briefer, not because the longing has faded, but because the same hopeful sentence whispered into another empty kitchen has begun to feel like the proof of what you most feared. Each shortened word still landed on me. None of those small asks fell short of my right hand. No impatience rises in me about how slowly you have come to believe you are remembered. Tenderness rises instead. Nowhere on a high shelf am I checking my ledger to see whether you have earned this hour of my attention. I am the kind of father whose attention is not the kind that has to be earned. The carving on my right hand is older than your obedience, older than your failure, older than the day you first learned to ask for love by performing well. It was there before the performances began. It will be there long after the performances are forgotten. A heavier weight rides under this fear than its surface admits. A secret embarrassment hangs in you about how often the thought, "No one is thinking of me right now," passes through your chest in an ordinary afternoon. A quiet shame rises when you catch yourself being grateful in a too deep way, because a small kindness from a stranger has briefly proven that your existence is registering somewhere. A slow suspicion has been settling in that the people closest to you may be politely forgetting you in pieces. A forgotten birthday here, a missed update there, a quiet unsubscribing from the small details of your week, and that the forgetting reflects something fundamentally unmemorable about who you are. Each of those hidden weights has been counted alongside the louder ones. They are real. They have heft. And almost none of them came from me. Press one fingertip into the soft hollow at the base of your throat. Light pressure, no more than the weight of a leaf. Let it stay there for a breath. That small spot is where a name is sometimes whispered, when no one else is in the room. Notice the faint warmth that rises under the fingertip, the small heat of a body still alive, still here, still being attended to by a system you did not design and cannot stop. That same attending is the attending I have been giving you across every hour of your existence. The pulse under your fingertip is not running because you are remembering to be remembered. It is running because you have been remembered every second since I formed you. Pull the fingertip away when you are ready. The attending continues without it. This dread of being unremembered did not assemble itself inside you out of nowhere. A parent once walked past you in the hallway without seeing the face you had carefully arranged for them to notice, and your young soul concluded that perhaps you were not as visible as the children in the picture frames. A sibling was openly preferred in front of you at the dinner table, and the small math of comparison wired itself into the way you would later read every room. A school friend dropped you for a brighter circle and never explained why, and the unexplained ending became a template by which you would later interpret every long silence. A partner stopped looking up when you came into a room, and the not looking up taught your spine to brace whenever you entered any room at all. In places of worship, the visible believers were the celebrated ones, while the quiet believers in the back row received only the dim recognition due to dim presences, and you absorbed, without anyone having to say it, that being remembered by heaven might also depend on being visible enough to merit the divine glance. None of those teachers were me. A few of them loved you in their tired way and were simply passing along the inattention they themselves had received. Others used your craving to be seen as a lever to keep extracting your loyalty. Both kinds of source produce the same falsified picture, that being remembered is conditional, must be earned, can be withdrawn, and that picture was drawn by hands that were never mine. Put it down for a few breaths. Tilt it, face down on the small table beside you, while I explain what the remembering of a father actually looks like inside the homeland it was born in. At some point in your formation, an idea took root inside you that my memory of you operated like a transaction log, a ledger sitting in the corner of my desk, a column for prayers offered, a column for offerings given, a column for the obediences managed in any particular week. Someone taught you that being remembered required a fresh deposit on Monday morning, and that an absence of deposit by Friday afternoon might mean the entry beside your name had begun to fade. Someone taught you that my attention worked the way a busy employer's attention works, drawn to whoever sent the most recent memo, distracted by whoever was loudest in the meeting, turned more readily toward high performers and away from the quiet ones in the back. That is not how I remember. That has never been how I remember. This image of my memory currently lodged in your ribcage, a temperamental thing requiring constant feeding, an attention that drifts away from the unimpressive, a recall that fades when the disciple grows tired, was rendered by pencils that have never been in my hand. A few of the pencils belonged to people doing their best with a dim picture they themselves had inherited. Others used the threat of my forgetting as a goad to keep you striving harder. Both kinds of pencil sketch the same falsified portrait, and that portrait has been costing you decades of resting in what is already true. Push it aside for now. Let me describe how I actually remember the ones I love, and you will register the difference in your body before your mind has time to argue with it. My memory of you is not a ledger. My memory of you is a carving. A ledger can be erased. A carving cannot. A ledger fades when the ink runs dry. A carving deepens with time. A ledger sits on a desk that other priorities can slide it off of. A carving is on my own skin. Wherever I am, your name is. Wherever I move, your name moves with me. There is no room in heaven I walk into where the engraving bearing you is left behind on a shelf. The mark goes where I go, because the mark is on me. Receive that line now as I speak it straight to the part of you that has been afraid of slipping out of my awareness. I cannot lose contact with what sits on my own palm. I cannot misplace what has been carved into the skin I work with. Every gesture I extend across the universe, every door I open, every storm I quiet, every word I speak over a tired heart on a continent far from yours, passes through hands that carry your name on the inside of them. You are not in my ledger. You are on my hand. Another kind of vault entirely. Another kind of permanence entirely. Another kind of relationship altogether. For too many years you have held up the gauge of human attention and asked whether the level in my recall matches what you experience from the people around you. That gauge will lie to you every time. Human attention runs small and tired and is easily drawn elsewhere. My attention is the substance by which the universe is held together. Measuring one with the other is like trying to weigh an ocean with a kitchen scale. Such an instrument simply cannot read what is actually there. Press the pad of your thumb gently against the center of the opposite palm, where a carpenter's hand once held a nail. Light pressure. Let the thumb rest there for the length of 3 slow breaths. That small contact is enough. Notice how a faint warmth gathers in the spot, the way warmth gathers wherever attention lingers. Now imagine, without straining the imagination, that a single line, fine and unfading, has always been etched in that exact place, and that the line spells out the name you have answered to since you were small enough to be carried. The image is not metaphor in the small sense. The image is the truth in shorthand. Stay with the warmth for one more breath. Then let the thumb drop. Walk with me now to a line I had Isaiah set down inside a chapter, aimed directly at a people who had stopped believing I still kept their name. Take it in the way they first received it, not as a verse on a translucent slide, but as letters carried by a tired messenger to households that had been away from home so long. Their children no longer knew the shape of the city their elders kept describing. I had this written for a community displaced into Babylon. Many of them had been born already inside that foreign land. The city of their origin, the city their elders called Zion, the city of mine they had been promised would always stand, had become, for the younger ones, the abstract memory of a place described in grandparents' songs. The bricks had fallen. The temple had been stripped. The roads back had become routes no living messenger walked anymore. Around the low fires of those exiled rooms, one fear rode on every chest. We are forgotten. Even Zion herself has forgotten us. Even the mother city of our birth no longer thinks of her children scattered into someone else's empire. If the city that bore us has begun forgetting, surely the God who promised the city has also moved on. Picture one of those evenings for a breath, a small dwelling with a low ceiling, an old man holding a small grandchild who is asking, again, for the story of the temple. And the old man's voice catches because the story is becoming harder to tell each year. A mother braids the hair of a daughter who has never seen the sea that touched the homeland. A father sits in the corner repeating to himself the songs his own father taught him, because he is afraid that if he does not repeat them, they will be forgotten by his line entirely. Around the low table, one question presses on every interior. Has he forgotten us? Has the one who once spoke to our grandparents in fire and cloud stopped paying attention to children of exile who can no longer even visit his house? A letter went into that room. I sent it through a prophet whose voice was already tired from many seasons of carrying news the powerful did not want to hear. Tucked into one of its quietest, most tender hinges, I handed those exiles, and you, in the chair you have settled into for this short message. A single sentence, built to be kept close for the rest of their generations. The sentence was not a strategy for repatriation. It was not a political promise about empires. It was a sentence about me, about the way I remember the ones I love, even when the ones I love have grown convinced the remembering has stopped. This is what I said. Isaiah, chapter 49, verse 16. Behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me. Walk through it slowly with me. There is more living inside each phrase than a fast reading will let you reach. Behold, the first word. Notice, not assume, not deduce, not theorize. Behold means look. Look again. Lift the gaze from the dust at your feet and look at the hand of the one who is speaking. Many of you have been so faithfully facing the ground of your own fear, studying every line of the disappointment, that you have not looked up at the hand reaching toward you. Behold is the invitation to lift the face. The mark is visible. You only need to raise your eyes the small distance from the dust to the hand. I have engraved you. Listen to the verb. Not written. A word can be erased, not painted. A pigment can fade, not stamped. A stamp can be reissued and reissued with different names. Engraved. Cut in. Carved into the skin of the hand itself, with the kind of permanence that does not depend on ongoing effort to maintain. Once engraving has happened, the engraving stays. What I have engraved into the skin of my right hand is not a renewable subscription that lapses when your faith forgets to update its information. The engraving is finished. The mark is set. It cannot be sanded off by your worst week. It cannot be smudged by your longest doubt. It cannot be revoked by a season in which you stopped praying altogether. Engraving is not contingent on the engraved one's behavior. It is contingent only on the engraver's choice. And the choice was made before the foundations of the world were set. You. The word that follows is small and unrepeatable. Not your people in general, not your tribe collectively, not the believers as a category. You. Singular. The one whose face I see in this very moment as these words land in your ears. The one whose name I would still know if everyone you have ever met forgot you tomorrow. The mark is not a general decoration on my palm. The mark is specific. The mark has the contours of a particular life. Your particular life. Etched into it. No other name in any chamber of heaven has the exact engraving that bears yours. On the palms of my hands. Read those words a second time. Not on a shelf in a back room of the divine library. Not in a file cabinet I open only on the days you have been impressive enough to merit a glance. On the palms of my hands, where I look the entire day, where every gesture I make begins, where I cradle every gift I extend, where I receive every prayer that travels up toward me. The hands I do everything with carry your name on them. Every kindness I have ever offered the universe has passed through palms that were already inscribed with you. Every door I have opened anywhere on earth has been opened by a hand that already had your name engraved across it. Your walls are continually before me. Hear the last phrase. Not your walls during the seasons when you are spiritually strong. Not your walls when you have been performing well. Continually. Without pause, without interruption, without distraction, without a moment in which my eye drifts away to attend to something I find more pressing. Nothing exists that I find more pressing than the small architecture of your life. Your boundaries, your structures, your shelters, your shape. And that small architecture is held before me as continuously as a heartbeat. Most of my deepest love has always been continuous in a way human love simply cannot be. Human attention drifts. Mine does not. You have been measured by the wrong attention. You have been remembering yourself with the instrument of human memory, and the instrument is shallow. Receive the instrument that actually matches the love. The walls of your life are before me as I form these words, and they have not been out of sight for a single instant since the morning I drew up their first blueprint. As I once said in another place, even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Hold that quiet promise alongside what Isaiah has now placed in your hand. The God who counts the hairs that fall from a single tired scalp is not the God who will lose track of the larger shape of who you are. The God who attends to your smallest specifics is not the God whose mind drifts off the central facts. Detail and totality are both held in one continuous gaze, and that gaze does not blink. Now look back at the question I posed at the opening of this short message. Why has the suspicion that I no longer remember you been so stubborn to dislodge from your ribcage? Here is your answer. Because nobody ever explained, in language your body could actually feel, that being remembered by me belonged to a different category of remembering altogether. Because the only memories you have ever known are the human kind, and human memories drift, soften, slip, and replace. Because no one informed you that the engraving bearing you sits permanently on my own hand, and a hand does not forget what has been carved into it. The remembering you have been hungering for has been the kind only I can give, and that remembering has been happening every second of your life, including the seconds in which you were most certain it had ended. Take the next sentences in slowly, the way you would receive a long-awaited message from someone who never broke a promise. The mark is not new. The mark is not pending. The mark is not waiting for you to qualify. The mark is engraved. It has been engraved for as long as I have been God, which is to say, forever. There is no version of any day on which the mark has been temporarily removed because you were difficult that morning. There is no version of any week on which the mark has been suspended pending review. There is no version of any decade in your life, including the decades you most regret, during which the mark was on hold. The mark has held its position on my palm without interruption. Receive that. Allow it to settle into the bones that have been bracing for the divine forgetting that was never going to come. So here, in this hour, is something small to carry into the rhythm of your week. Whenever the old voice rises in you again, the voice that whispers, "He has forgotten you," this is the day his attention has finally drifted elsewhere. Pause and pose one quiet question to the voice. Is my name still on his palm? Speak the question gently. Do not raise the volume. Do not argue with the voice. Simply ask. The answer is yes. The answer has always been yes. The answer will continue to be yes, regardless of how the day around you is going. Then breathe out a little longer than you breathed in, and walk forward into the next ordinary minute, with the answer tucked into the lining of your chest. A second beat to this small practice, for moments when you have an extra breath of space. After the answer has come back, refuse the urge to march onward. Linger inside the yes for the length of 3 slow breaths. A number of you will sprint past the relief, because relief is a territory you have not lived in for a long stretch. Inhabit the territory. Allow the bones inside your shoulders to register that the engraving on my right hand has not lapsed. Permit the small clench inside the chest to soften an inch around the truth that the one who loves you has not lost track of you across a single second of the long road that brought you here. A third beat, softer than the prior two. Whenever a small mercy surfaces inside your week, a stranger's kindness arriving exactly at the hour your loneliness was loudest, a buried memory of being loved as a child rising up in a quiet moment, the unexpected return of a friend's voice after many silent months, resist the urge to label it a coincidence. Lean closer toward the moment and say this out loud in the voice your room allows. The engraving is showing. That single line is a whole posture. It teaches the eye to recognize the small, frequent ways the one whose palm carries your name is letting that carrying touch you in the ordinary hours of an ordinary life. Each small mercy is the mark on the hand becoming briefly visible in the world you are walking through. Should any line here have reached the corner of you, most afraid of being unremembered, drop the word engraved below in the comments, not as a slogan, but as a small flag staked beside the truth that has been true the whole way through. Above this video, inside the pinned spot, 7 brief letters are already prepared for you. One to meet each morning of the coming week, sent to your inbox the moment a small consent lifts the gate. Take them. For the one whose family of origin made you feel forgotten in your own house. Hear me. A parent who could not see you was not the father whose hand carries your name. The two are not the same. A human parent's attention can drift because human attention is finite. Mine cannot drift because my attention is infinite, and infinite attention does not run thin. Bring the wound of being unseen into the room with me. Do not arrange it neatly. Set it down beside the hand that has been carrying your name all along. The hand does not measure the wound. The hand holds it. To the one who watches the people who used to know you, slowly let the threads of friendship loosen. Hear this also. The drifting of human friendships is not a verdict on your worth. It is only the natural fragility of human attention across a busy lifetime. People you have loved are not unloving you in their forgetting. They are only being human. My remembering of you does not depend on their remembering. The full shape of who you are stands before me continually, even while the small circle of human friendships around you is being quietly remodeled by the years. If a long illness has worn you down to the point that you now suspect even the medical team has begun to confuse which face belongs to which chart, hear this too. What I have carved into the skin of my hand does not depend on the alertness of your physicians. They are tired and imperfect and human. I am not. The chart of your healing is not a paper that can be misplaced in a busy office. The chart of your healing is engraved on the same hand that carries your name, and the engraver does not lose what he has carved. Some of the healing arriving in you is the kind that does not register on the next scan because it is being done in the deeper room of the soul. And the soul has not been forgotten by the one who set the chart on his own palm. For a parent grieving a child who has drifted into a life you cannot reach, hear this as well. A child who has ceased calling you has not ceased being carved into me. The engraving with their name on it sits on the same hand that bears yours. They are not lost in the manner you have been afraid. They were lost. They are inside the shape I am still attending to continuously, even when that shape stays invisible to your eye. Continue your prayers. Remain in the chair you have been keeping warm with your tears. A hand that engraves does not lose what it has engraved, including the child you have worried about for years. Should any voice in any chapter of your life have claimed to speak for me while telling you I had forgotten you because of something you did, hear me very clearly. That voice was never mine. An engraving cannot be reversed by your worst week. The carving on my palm is not subject to your behavior. The carving predates your behavior. The carving will outlast your behavior. Anyone who informed you that your failure had erased your name from my hand was speaking a falsehood I never authorized. And you are free to let that falsehood walk out of the room of your soul without arguing with it any further. For one of you currently walking through plenty, a peaceful home, a body mostly cooperating, a season of unusual ease, receive this last note before I close. Plenty carries its own quiet risk. Inside plenty, an heir can begin to assume that the steady attending of the father is the same steady ease of the season. And so, the moment the season inevitably turns, you can start to wonder whether the attending has turned along with it. The attending has not turned. The carving bearing your name was set into my right hand the same morning as the carving of the one walking through hardship at this very hour. Continue remembering me through the comfortable years. The remembering is not for my benefit. The remembering trains your soul into a posture it will need on the day the season is different. Hear the mantra one last time, the way an old friend repeats a true sentence in the doorway before stepping back out into the evening. Your name is on my hand. Your face is in my memory. Stitch those two lines into the inner lining of your coming week. Murmur them at a red light. Press them gently against your sternum whenever the old dread of being forgotten tries to drag its chair back to where it used to sit at your table. Each line stays true, whether or not your circumstances confirm them today. The hand requires no verification. The memory requires no supervision. Both have been mine to keep, and mine to keep means kept forever. Whenever an early sign of the engraving does finally appear inside your week, no reason exists to be startled by how softly it lands. Much of what I do beneath the skin of a tired life arrives without any trumpets at all. One ordinary daybreak, the fear of being forgotten loosens for reasons you will not be able to explain. One afternoon, an old wound rises up, but no longer floods you because something beneath the surface has worn down the stone the wound used to rebound off. One nightfall, you slide into sleep without itemizing every reason you might have been overlooked. Each instance is the engraving becoming briefly visible inside an ordinary life. Honor it. Linger inside it. The engraving has always been there. You are only beginning to perceive what the hand has been carrying the whole way. Inhale slowly through the nose. Pause at the top for a heartbeat. Release the breath outward without forcing it. Allow the out-breath to last a beat longer than the in-breath. A drawn-out exhale signals to the body that the attending is not in jeopardy. It signals to the chest that the one whose palm bears your name has not stepped away from his post. A drawn-out exhale is the smallest possible affirmation a body can offer in the felt nearness of being remembered, and it travels to my ear with the same fullness any spoken prayer ever has. A couple of those breaths will return you, kindly, into the day you stepped out of, when you sat down for this short message. Returning, you will be slightly different. The room around you will look the same. The hand bearing your name will be the same. Only the chest of the returning one will have softened, because the chest will have finally registered what was always true. Amen. Should anything here have settled into a quiet corner inside you, 7 brief letters already sit waiting in the pinned spot beneath this video. One for every dawn of the coming week, slipped into your inbox the moment a small consent opens the gate. Take them up. Forward this video to someone bearing an unspoken worry that the one who formed them has stopped remembering they exist. Hit subscribe so the message following this lands ahead of the old whisper that tries to talk first. No engraved name was ever meant to journey through a life as if it had been unremembered.